We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. Okay, as we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing.
Welcome to space.
Hello, listener, and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through every mistake, failure, and explosion that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn, he, him.
Oh, my next.
Joe, that's you.
Joe.
Joe, he, him.
And a sleepy Chris, he, him.
And today, we are going to be talking about Andree's Arctic balloon expedition. So, as you heard, after a substantial and unprofessional delay, we have returning guest and host of the Lions Led by Donkeys podcast, Joe Kassabian, on today. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Have I hit the hat trick yet? I feel like I've hit a hat trick.
I think so, yeah.
If I had a hat, I'd throw it. But that would also be wasteful. I'll just throw it against the wall of my own recording
Just
studio.
spike it against the wall as hard as possible.
Because we've had various collections. We've infiltrated our way into... I've always viewed it as kind of like the Nateverse is an actual solar system, and we've kind of managed to stray asteroid in from deep space and just kind of get like locked around a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, like you've seen Teletubbies,
Yeah,
where like the baby is the sun, but now the baby is just Nate. I mean, to be fair, that's exactly how lions got into the Nate bathyspheres.
Yeah.
Me constantly bothering Francis until I got on the show. I don't know how many times I messaged him, and then Nate's friend listened to the show and said, the show's funny, but it sounds fucking awful. Maybe you should get involved. He slides into my DMs, which finally gets Francis to pay attention to me. And almost 7 years later, here I am.
Just Nate hearing your show and thinking, I can fix this.
That's exactly what happened.
It's good that people call it networking, because that sounds somewhat impressive and kind of like sleek and businesslike, because what it actually is, like what is just being fucking annoying is what pushes you forward in podcasting.
Undeniably, that is true.
Now, how has everyone been? Okay, so I actually wrote this part. I thought we would have all of us, all the Chris's. Audience, Chris is not going to be here. It is actually my fault. It is my scheduling problem that has forced us to record whenever he is unavailable.
We're suffering a 50% reduction in Chris's.
I feel like I've lost my right arm.
Joe, you will have to be deadpan snarker for this one. That's kind of Chris's role. Other Chris here is angry and shouty most of the time.
Okay, I feel like I'm normally that guy anyway.
I was going to say angry and shouty, but you have the Sibrel episode?
Oh, that was fun because you guys did like a Freaky Friday. It made Chris into the angry, shouty one, and you just lost all will to live. Also, he was on Rogan somewhat recently, so he's got a big old boost. Sibrel, for context, is the guy who popularized like the moon landing conspiracies.
He was on Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
I mean, I would believe that if we're talking about like Joe Rogan like a long time ago, but like he was on there recently?
A long time ago as well.
Oh, okay. I thought
he was like a couple of months ago.
That's still fucking wild to me. Like, I thought even Joe Rogan was beyond like the moon landing is fake, because now he's just on to like parroting like the Great Replacement theory. I thought he left like space weirdos in the past.
Well, yeah, and he did the trademark thing which is he pretended to like, oh, I'm going to take him on, I'm going to fact check him. And in doing so, he did it so badly that he basically like convinced all his fans like, well, he beat the fact checking. It's got to be real.
Yeah, the fact checking guy known as Jamie, Googling things as he speaks. I mean, there was. I'm a huge fan of the show Knowledge Fight.
Oh hell yeah!
A long time ago, they feels like a long time ago. They kind of analyzed the last time Alex Jones went on Joe Rogan, which was a while ago now, but and kind of explained why. I mean, besides all of the other problems with Joe Rogan, of which there are just so many, how his kind of form of pushing back and fact checking is just fucking stupid and pointless when it comes to these guys. Because I mean, I have a personal policy when it comes to conspiracy theorists, like Sabrell or Jones or fucking whoever.
Also, the movie we watched, A Funny Thing on the Way to the Moon, just has a full unedited shot of JFK getting domed.
His head just
they
did
did right
that.
at the end.
Yeah, his head just did that.
I had actually never seen that scene because like I'm so used to them like we respectfully took out the last frame. This is just like no, like splat.
Someone threw a bottle of beer at just the right angle to just.
Yeah, he just got glassed. He's fine.
But I totally know what you mean. Where like if you do fact checking poorly, you wind up doing the opposite. Like you give the impression
You
that they
reinforce
have conquered.
Yeah, and when you do it live, it's like doing a debate, right? Debates are, in my opinion, inherently pointless because you can never corner these guys because they'll be like, "Oh yeah, what about this thing?" Well, you're always reactive because they force you to be. It makes it's a purposeful tactic to make them constantly look more authoritative and therefore more knowledgeable. When in reality, they have no core principles or anything. It's just a constant race of how fast they can drag the goalpost back.
Oh yeah.
And you'll never pin them down, you know? The only thing you can do with these people is rather than debate them, like I have been challenged debates by various fucking people over my work, and I always shoot them down for a very simple reason of like, go fuck yourself. They are only fit for mockery and not to be taken seriously. When you invite someone on there, you're already acknowledging what they have to say is at least as good as yours because you have platformed it, you know? It's fucking pointless.
And I'm trying to think of a segue, and the only thing I can think of is that like in this story we are about to talk about, it doesn't line up exactly, but there is that kind of figure who is able to like mobilize hype. Like all of the experts are telling him how horrible an idea is, and he's able to play to the crowd instead, and he wins.
A hype beast balloonist.
That's literally how they worked, and that's unfortunately how like all of space travel has worked forever. Is just like it's not about being an engineer, it's about being a salesman.
Yeah, that's kind of technological progress in general, right? Like, as cool as your idea is, it goes nowhere until you get like someone with money to start making it rain on you, and the only way to do that is by hype beasting yourself.
Yeah,
I hate
nationalism is always more exciting than science.
You also have the Russian space program that just turned into who's got the better used car salesman energy.
Oh hell yeah!
Come on down to Crazy Ivan's Lotta sales and rockets also.
Listen, you won't believe what this R7 can do. Take it for a spin.
You could fit so many dead cosmonauts at this thing.
Listen, the amount of dead dogs you can put in here.
Aw, I used to have a dog named Laika, and that hurts me on the inside.
I wondered, whenever I heard that for the longest time, I was like, does he know?
Yeah, I did know. And the reason why, because like, I wanted Laika to have a happy ending, and she did.
Right.
So, you know.
Oh, so like spiritually... It's like vicarious, like your dog is vicariously living for Laika.
Yes. And, you know, lived to be in the late teens. So the long, happy life.
Every year that the Soviet Laika didn't live was spiritually transferred.
Yeah, and weirdly, Laika hated Russians. I feel like they might have some spiritual transfer there.
Fully just, doggy reincarnated.
Space Dog just reached through the ether and just gave her the cursed information.
Yeah, she could sense, like, this Russian is very racist towards your father. Bark at him.
Now, we have talked about balloons before. Specifically, we did an episode about the earlier period of balloonomania and another about the pre-World War II race for the stratosphere, and how all of that wound up with a lot of people dying unnecessarily. And another thing, like every time I do this, I always feel like I need to have a preamble to let people know, like, hey, it's not space exactly, but it's kind of space. And meanwhile, like every single fan has just fully internalized, like, no, this is just about people who go up and bad things.
I mean, that's kind of like what Jeff Bezos did, right? He didn't like go to space.
Yeah,
right?
he went to space. They didn't reach orbit. So that's what it's just like a straight pop up and then down.
Oh, that's fucking mid at best. Come on.
Oh yeah, he is edging space. He hasn't really gotten there
that's
yet.
Just rude unless you're into that kind of thing. And I don't know if space is.
Considering what that Hopper rocket does look like, it just straight up looks like a dick. It looks like the Austin Powers joke.
It looks
whenever
like Jeff
goes
Bezos'
on radar.
head.
Just kind of smooth and weirdly rounded.
Oh,
Fella,
Now-
should I get this rocket looked at? I came back from space and now there's boils on the side of it.
Oh, God.
and we will also be talking a lot more about like high altitude stuff, balloon stuff in the future, especially because as like the space race starts up, there continues to be a balloon race well into the Cold War.
Really?
But I am tired of Cold War aerospace failures, and with our guest on, I wanted to try something interesting. We're going to talk about a Victorian aerospace disaster.
Huh.
We are going to talk about a guy who saw expedition after expedition sail toward the North Pole and either fail or just die. And he decided that he could do it in a week with a balloon. Have you guys ever heard of Andree's Arctic balloon expedition?
Oh, and the very concept of a Victorian aerospace disaster is like, is that what happens when Mary Poppins crashes into a building?
Yeah, just dozens killed.
Just Mary Poppins has a controlled flight into an apartment block.
A second Mary Poppins hit the
Oh,
building.
that's it.
Right, fuck. Big Ben getting there was another Big Ben before.
Mary Poppins does not smelt steel beams.
Wait, how do you know what she had in that briefcase?
Ooh,
True.
yeah, thermite.
This whole dress is made out of Simtex.
I've doused myself in gasoline before flying.
I'm just now picturing like if Guy Fawkes were success. I don't think he had a balloon. Well, like the balloons were hydrogen back then too, so that's all you need.
Yeah, that's good enough. How much hydrogen can you pump into Mary Poppins?
This also
But
implies
no,
that she was hijacked, like someone just like piggybacked on her and like pointed her towards.
Yeah, one of the kids got into her back.
Oh, no.
We ran into a Ratatouille kind of situation.
Yeah,
and she got
the tiny
piloted
little
into
box
the apartment
cutter.
block.
Ratatouille. Oh god. I have ran this podcast directly into the second tower. I'm sorry.
Into the second bed.
Also, as we get into this, my main source for today's episode is the book The Ice Balloon by Alec Wilkinson. As always, all source links will be down below in the show notes.
Quick aside, a Victorian aerospace disaster sounds like something that happens over the course of like 20 minutes instead of a couple seconds.
Oh yeah, like everyone is fully like, it's the kind of thing where you point and scream for a couple of seconds and you stop, you catch your breath, and you just have to like keep doing that over and
God.
over.
It's like the Austin Powers fucking steamroller thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
Essentially, it's like, yo, this guy's about to get mangled. Yo,
Oh
take a
fuck,
look at
I
this.
need Mayday to come back.
Does this make it the first ever steampunk space disaster?
Oh,
Oh, God. Yes.
I need Mayday to come back and do more balloon disasters. Arctic expeditions. Now, without going into an excruciating amount of detail here, you need to understand the historical context, listener. In the 1800s, neither the North Pole or the South Pole had been conquered, and there was a large community of self-proclaimed explorers, almost all wealthy European dudes, who regularly battled to be the first to reach this landmark or that. Their motivations were varied. Some of them explored out of a genuine urge to expand science's understanding of the Arctic, and a whole lot of them explored for the ego trip and legacy of being the first to reach, any place. Mixed in with that was a healthy amount of national competition. A lot of these guys were wealthy, but very few of them had rent an entire Royal Navy fleet and take a couple hundred sailors with me kind of money. In a sort of proto-space race, governments correctly figured that any personal victory for the explorer, like say being the first person to reach the North Pole, would extend to the nation that sponsored them. And because of that, they funded and supported explorers as they set up these expeditions.
This is why they should have armed the penguins.
Yeah.
Like, give me a penguin color revolution in this situation.
Just
you know what I'm saying?
Amundsen getting run up on by a penguin with
Yeah.
a knife.
An explorer dragging his fucking sled across the Arctic and bam, penguin IED.
Yeah.
The provisional penguins.
I mean, the sled dogs would definitely be on the sides of the penguin.
Yeah, you got bomb-sniffing dogs at the front of your sled.
The hardest part is burying the wires under the ice,
Yeah, just there's an incredibly long tripwire across half of Antarctica, and if you hit it... Now, this is a pattern that has largely remained the same all the way to today. You can argue that's even how the space race got started, like genuine scientists and nationalistic politicians cooperating in a way that just happened to advance science. While there's evidence that early explorers like Pytheas from Greece and the Vikings had reached and described the Arctic, regular scientific attempts to reach the North Pole really started around the 1870s. These expeditions were mostly nationally supported and involved military crews and large sailing ships. On more than one occasion, fresh conscripts right out of training were assigned to go die in the Arctic.
Well,
fuck that.
You are like a 14-year-old. You have been press ganged into the Navy, and now you're told, like, all right, like, where are we going? North. Keep going that way.
I thought getting stationed in Texas sucked.
This sounds like an any percent speed run of putting a musket ball in your CO's face.
So I do have I have a friend who was stationed at CFS Alert, which is the furthest north. It's a Canadian military base that is the furthest north permanently occupied place on the planet.
That sounds terrible.
Oh yeah, it's very much like you do a rotation there. You don't actually get stationed there. Like, no, aside from like one or two people, no one is actually staying there permanently because it is the most like hellish place to be.
Is that in the Arctic, like the Antarctic, or is that like bumfuck nowhere middle of like northern Canada? Because I know Canada has a lot of places that are very fucking remote.
So it's part of the territory of Nunavut, which is kind of like
okay.
central Canada, go straight up, where it kind of has this like it has this like rightward kind of hook thing with a bunch of islands, and it's just like way at the tip of those islands.
This looks like the scene for the movie The Thing.
It honestly is. That was apparently like people watch it there, and it's just like, hey, I remember that.
This would be one of the few times it's like a solid choice to be like enlist as like armor or infantry, because you know those dudes aren't going up there. It's all like the environmental like communications nerds,
The weather people.
Yeah, the weather guys, the intel guys. Like, meanwhile, infantry is like, suckers, I just have to walk my feet off, but at least I don't have to go to the fucking Arctic.
I honestly feel like Signals would not give a shit because they're locked inside playing Counter-Strike anyway. You know, like it does not matter what environment you put them in as long as the internet's good.
I mean, to be fair, in the defense of combat arms troops, that's also what we do.
That's all. Yeah, fair.
I was going to say playing CSGO and just monitoring the ping to see how close the Russians are.
I mean, I certainly played way more Call of Duty than I ever did do soldier stuff.
At least, what is it, in NATO, we kind of get out of it, but I'm pretty sure if you were a tanker in the Russian army, there's a chance you could get stuffed into a Kharkov Chanka.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Just drive this apartment block around.
Oh, is that the kind of like Arctic tank thing?
Yeah, basically a house on shreds.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I just, like, the tanker in me is just shuddering how awful those things are to work on.
Fucking slipping a track in the middle of the Arctic.
Oh, fuck that. That's when I just shoot myself.
Yeah.
So, like we said, these kind of expeditions, they really get started around 1870. And over the next 30 years, these the expeditions mostly followed a pattern. A crew would sail north, they might achieve a new record of going like the furthest north, and then they would be forced to turn around by bad weather or their ships being stuck in the ice. And when that happened, more than a few tried to walk home across the ice.
Did it work?
They're still up there.
Hold that thought, because of these, my favorite is probably the Lady Franklin Bay Expedition, sponsored by the U.S. Army Signal Corps and led by Adolphus Washington Greeley.
I absolutely love this story.
Oh, you're aware of this one?
Yes, yeah. We've done an episode on the Franklin Bay Expedition.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's just the joy. I'm really happy to see the Army got in on this.
The Army had to get a little bit of misery too as a treat.
Yeah, our soldiers are missing out on this. We have to kill them in more unique and interesting ways.
Now, this expedition lasted 4 years, involved several failed attempts to resupply a crew of explorers trapped at the far north tip of Canada, and one of those attempts failed because the rescue ship was crushed between ice floes and sank.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Oh man, that ice snuck up on me.
Real me playing Kerbal Space Program where like the rescue ship for the rescue ship has failed.
Listen, that ice floe was so quiet. It just snuck up.
Eventually, once enough rescuers get stranded there, it just becomes a city.
It becomes its own colony.
I mean, why else would like a place like Ohio be founded? You know, like a whole bunch of fucking fur trappers got lost. Like, I guess we're in Cleveland now.
Yes, Cleveland, the mistake on the lake.
of the 25 men who went out on this expedition, only 7 survived to be rescued, and one of those 7 immediately died. Which is like, rip, you get rescued, and then I don't know, I assume they just like, all right, well, we got to get these feet off because of the all the frostbite you've got.
You survive the Arctic, you get put on a ship, you get it back home, and you're confronted by one coughing baby who immediately kills you.
I was to say, this is absolutely the era where you just, get coughed on once and you just implode.
Your bone marrow turns to liquid and you die.
You just immediately become a red mist fart cloud and you're done.
I got the bloody farts again.
Hold that thought, that comes back later.
Oh, but wait, what?
Now, among many problems with the expedition was Greeley's leadership and insistence on maintaining military discipline, even while everyone was starving to death, with which I can illustrate with a great quote. Greeley announced that the soldiers would have to do the officers' laundry, asked for volunteers, and got none. He told a sergeant named David Brainard to assign someone. When the men's response was to feel aggrieved, Greeley, according to Brainard's journal, said, "He was not a man to be trifled with, and in case of mutiny, he would not stop at the loss of human lives to restore order." And I'm assuming, like, as this is said, there's just like a pile of laundry, and he is threatening to murder his crew.
I will shoot the first man who doesn't wash my disgusting chonies.
You missed a spot.
Yeah, this guy just drips with West Point energy.
Also worth mentioning that one of the 19 dead was flat out executed by Greeley.
What are you gonna do? Shoot me?
No, I'm not gonna wash your shitty fucking clothes. What are you gonna do?
Blam.
Put me up against the wall and shoot me? Fast forward 5 seconds, like, I didn't understand the game you were playing, sir. My bad.
He's just decimating them like a rock wrapped in his dirty underwear, and you have to choose who's going to be brained with it.
At the same time, though, in that situation, was that guy even sad to finally just be shot? He's like, look, everybody else around here is starving to death, getting mauled to death by walruses and shit. That, like, home dude died of consumption. He's shitting out blood. Please just shoot me.
I could honestly see that being like another officer thing where Greeley is like, no, these bullets are reserved for officers only. I get all 11 of them.
I am just going to beat you to death slowly.
Sir, it's over. Please just give us a good death. And he just mag dumps 11 into his own gut. And he's like, no, fuck you.
Have
Not
fun
even
starving to
going for the
death,
face.
sucker.
You will also be happy to know that Lieutenant Adolphus Washington Greeley survived the expedition, was hailed a hero back home, and eventually rose to the rank of Major General.
They always do, baby.
He became the chief signal officer for the Army and eventually got a Medal of Honor.
Oh, he can share that honor with all the soldiers at Wounded Knee. Good for him.
Anyway, throughout the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, expeditions like this were normal, and they were slowly but reliably pushing further and further north. The British were probably the biggest player in the Arctic, though there was stiff competition from the United States, Norway, and Denmark. Now, despite their Nordic status, by the 1880s, Sweden had fallen far behind in the race for the North Pole. They had a strong first showing with the explorer Adolf Nordenskjold, pushing several farthest north records, and eventually leading the first expedition through the Northeast Passage.
It's weird how that was just a common name back then.
Adolf
Nordenskjold.
I mean, the main problem with the Swedish efforts tapering out is because IKEA doesn't build ships.
I think what happens is that's when they start building ships. So basically, there was that big trip, like that big moment of honor, and then they stopped for 20 whole years. There were no major supported Swedish Arctic expeditions.
No Swedes allowed.
The Swede is not allowed in the Arctic sphere.
We've had enough of you coming up here, leaving your chefs behind.
But that would change in 1893 with the idea of a man named Solomon August Andrée, the hero of our story. André's pitch. Born in 1863 in the small Swedish town of Grana, little Solomon André's favorite activity as a child was apparently foreshadowing. Quote, as a boy, Andrée built a raft from boards he found, and he and a friend sailed out onto Lake Vättern and had to be rescued when the wind rose. Another time, from a cliff above Grana, he launched a balloon he had filled with gas, and the balloon landed on the roof of a barn and caught fire.
As one does.
Good job, buddy.
I love how kids worked back then. Like, no, I'm going to give my child a copious amount of explosive flammable gas and let him play with it.
And I want to say that this is kids being kids, but like that is Andrée energy for the entire rest of his life.
Hell
What,
yeah.
his dad saying, here's a nickel, gold, and go to the pharmacy and get me
except
some TNT?
that his dad eventually gets replaced by Alfred Nobel.
Oh,
Yeah, the dynamite guy.
yeah. Yeah, here you go, kid. Take a kroner and go kill yourself with it.
Naturally, he decided that he wanted to be an engineer, and when he was old enough, he enrolled at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, where he excelled in physics. After graduating, he spent a few years as a draftsman and then at an engineering firm. He got very into phrenology and even used his talents to build a little phrenology helmet for himself out of brass.
Yep. I was always waiting for that one. I mean, the right time frame, you get a Nordic guy.
Yeah, like 1800s man. Phrenology is probably going to be involved. Like, I'm sure there's like fancy phrenology, and then there's me and my friends at the pub phrenology.
I'm just a hobbyist phrenologist. I only measure my friends' brain pans.
I'm in it for the love of the game. I'm not selling out.
Yeah, I really, like deep in my bones, I really want to measure a penguin's intelligence. And in order to do that, I must float over to the Arctic and measure its skull.
Not being a phrenologist for humans, but exclusively for like emperor penguins.
Just deciding that the emperor penguin is more trustworthy than the Adelie penguin just by like rubbing its head.
Oh no, I've come back after 40 years and I've invented penguin slavery. Fuck.
On the other hand, I don't think he ever did this, but this would be an incredible way to like, he's going to have a lot of critics through his life. And this would be an incredible way to just shoot them down. If some guy's like, Andree, why are you doing this? This is a horrible idea. He just kind of like pats their head. Shows what you know.
What does a man with your brain pan know about my work?
Of course you'd say that.
You don't understand the penguins.
You have the jawline of a Georgian. Please get out of this room.
Someone gave this man the Russian ethnography diagram and his eyes just light up.
I did go to a bar in Tbilisi and it was in the bathroom. That exact chart. It never ceases to make me laugh because Georgians, Azeris, and Armenians are just different mustaches.
Every single urinal has a different face above it and you have to match it.
Yeah. There's not a small amount of people who still exist today who are like, no, that guy's not Georgian. He doesn't have that kind of mustache.
Yeah, just like you start growing the mustache at, I don't know, whatever, 9 years old, and it immediately styles itself correctly.
I mean, the only way to tell the difference between an Armenian and a Georgian when it comes to those is actually the mustaches that we have in our shoulder hair and not on our faces. Now,
in 1876, Andree found his new calling when he took a ship to Philadelphia to see the Centennial Exposition, which is basically like a world fair. On the cruise over, he had only one book to read, Laws of the Winds, and it basically balloon-pilled him, purely just because he was reading this one book over and over. And he became convinced that balloons were like the way of the future and the answer to every scientific problem. Also, when he got to the expedition, he was only allowed to stay because he became a janitor at the Swedish pavilion. He just kind of showed up without a ticket. They were just like, yo, you can like sleep in the animatronic display as long as you clean up after yourself.
You're becoming a balloon roadie.
He's in it for the love of the art.
True to form, he also visited a bunch of professional phrenologists and swapped notes with them.
I do have questions. Balloons are kind of circular, right? Like when they come up.
Oh, I guarantee you he like engineered bumps into his balloon.
I was
like,
going to say, is this man judging balloons based on their shape and their bumps and whatnot? Like, I can't fly this balloon. This one is clearly French.
The first ever perfect graphic balloon. Or sorry,
the balloons of the Soviet Union. I desperately, okay, no, that's got to be a meme. That's got to be some art of like the Soviet ethnography of various launch vehicles, of just like the R7 versus the Proton. That
is fucking cursed.
Yeah.
Everybody knows when it comes to Soviet aerospace, Armenians are only shaped like MiGs. It's all we got, all right?
Mikoyan, yeah. Now, while this experience made him a firm believer in balloons, he wouldn't actually get the chance to fly in one until 16 years later, when a Norwegian aeronaut, Francesco Chetti, which I would not take to be a Norwegian dude, took him up for 2 flights.
Ancestral Norwegian named Francesco.
Also, on top of being an aeronaut, Chetti was a mind reader and what the book describes as a starvation artist.
Huh.
You want to fill me in a little bit on that one?
I don't know what it means. The book just describes him like apparently it was a thing that like rich people liked to see. I don't know if it was real time. I don't know if you're like watching a guy digest and just like, wow, look
just
at that.
Watching people in a hunger strike. Like, I really like the expression here.
I mean, this being the 1880s, I guarantee you that like he stood inside an X-ray machine the whole time, and they like watched him digest, and he probably just like dissolved on the spot.
Man, these dudes would be really into aestheticism. Like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Also, we're skipping over the mind reader part.
Oh yeah, that too.
That part is pretty load-bearing, I must say. I don't want the guy who's building the thing I'm going to fly in to believe he could read people's minds. That's like if you find out that you're about to step into like, you know, a spacecraft and the engineer who built the thing is like, so what's your sign? And they're like, oh
no,
fuck.
You're going to want to sit in that seat over there.
Yeah. This seat's for fucking Geminis only, homie.
We have to balance out the chakras of the vessel.
Yeah, I got to take this rocket booster to the chiropractor.
Now, after the flights, Andree decided that he needed a balloon of his own. Quote, with money from a fund created to further science and the public welfare, he bought one he called Svea, after the thistle that is the Swedish national emblem. He made 9 flights in Svea, all of them alone, carrying a mirror in order to see whether his face turned different colors at different altitudes.
Hell yeah.
So again, he has like, there is a Swedish public money fund that is just like, hey, we're going to fund the sciences. And this dude is just like, yo, I need a balloon and I'm going to see how blue my face gets.
Yeah, I'm going to turn my face into a fucking flying mood ring.
Just like him coming back down, like looking completely normal by then and just like reporting to the Swedish Academy of Sciences, like, like pink and then beige and then blue and then pink again. And everyone giving him a standing ovation.
Look how blue my shit is, guys. This is fucking mind-blowing.
That was basically like Nobel science worthy back then.
Hell yes.
So on the one hand, we have the continuing race to reach the pole, a race that Sweden is very far behind in. And on the other, we have an eccentric phrenologist balloon lover.
Who's friends with a mind reader.
Yes.
Yeah, the mind reading part. He just holds the side of your face and just knows everything about you.
Oh, I guarantee you they had like a psychic versus phrenologist off, like one, like both of them trying to like read each other at the same time.
Man, that's like the Goku versus Vegeta of their time.
It's like blood pouring out of their ears as like Andree is trying to rub his skull and the other guy's trying to like burst his brain. So he decided, naturally, that he was going to be the first to the North Pole. He was going to lead the way for Sweden, and he was going to do it with this revolutionary, about 100-year-old technology by this point. In 1895, first at a speech at the Swedish Royal Academy of Sciences, and then again at the International Geographic Congress in London, Andree tried to pitch the world's foremost geologists and explorers on balloons. It is also worth mentioning that at the meeting in London, he spoke immediately after General Greely, who was by that time about 6 months fresh from his own failed expedition.
I mean, that must be really easy for him to explain. He's like, yeah, no balloons, I have balloons. Different.
Yeah.
Did he get to London with a balloon?
I don't think so.
Oh, that would have been a flex.
Of course not.
Well, then I have lost faith in this man. If you can't go from Sweden to London in a balloon, why the fuck am I going to try to get to the Arctic in it, man? Show some faith in your own beliefs here.
So he started his speech with a long list of continents and environments that European explorers had conquered. And then he laid out how the Arctic was different because it was cold.
Shit's cold, yo.
I can think of a few other reasons why it was different, namely that there's nothing for the Europeans to exploit there yet.
Yeah.
What are you going to extract? The cold?
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of making fun of him here, and his explanation, like, there was some merit to the differences between the Arctic and these other areas, but in his speech, he basically said, like, oh, like, you're exploring the Amazon or, like, the deserts of North Africa? Pfft, those places are paradises. I could do that in my sleep.
Yeah. Everybody knows how easy it was to go into tropical areas in the 1800s.
And he's saying this while, like, trying to pitch these dudes on, like, giving him money.
I suppose the difference is the environment just wants to kill you, as opposed to this ant bit me and now I'm going to die over the course of, like, a week.
It's like that scene from fucking Mad Men, like, fellas, you've invested hot. He flips the page. What if you invested in cold?
In cold.
Marketing genius.
Like Alfred, everyone else starts muttering. Alfred Nobel's pupils dilate slightly.
Man had his fucking Don Draper moment on selling cold to some Europeans.
He just does the, like, American Congress thing where he, like, walks in with a snowball and he just throws it at Greeley.
Oh God, that fucking guy.
Triggers some deep-seated PTSD of the Arctic.
Yeah, like Greeley immediately shoots him in the head.
Someone throws a snowball at Greeley and he immediately acts like I do when fireworks go off.
Oh, fuck.
Seeing a child with an ice cream cone in like Philadelphia and just shooting them in the head reflexively.
Just like the autonomic nervous system or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's just something tickles the lobes just right. Your hand raises on its own.
Now, Andree then spoke about the methods that others had tried to use to reach the North Pole and why they failed. Ships got stuck in the ice or were even crushed between drifting icebergs. Sledges, whether pulled by men or dogs, worked well enough on short hauls, but no one had yet managed to get them to go far enough to like actually reach the pole. I particularly like this part because in the same way with like talking about these other areas that people had explored, it wasn't enough just to say that they hadn't worked. Andree, according to the book, quote, maligned the sledge as though the entire concept of a sled sickened him.
What is this sliding shit?
It's just,
What if you put the dogs in a balloon, guys?
It's just a balloon. The dogs are on the ground with a very long lead, and they're just pulling it along.
What do you do? Just raise the dogs at the end
The
of the
dogs are
day?
just dangling beneath. Now, concluding that every method tried before hadn't and could not work to get a crew to the North Pole, Andree pitched his solution, the balloon. For the small sum of $38,000, which is about $1.5 million today, Andree would take a crew of 3 on a short flight over the Arctic, where the winds would drop him comfortably in the United States. He estimated he would reach either New York City or LA.
That's a pretty big. That's a pretty huge margin of error, I must say.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, New York and LA are just right next to one another.
And while that may sound like a ridiculously undercooked plan, Andree had answers for every one of his critics. When a British explorer named A. Silva White doubted that a balloon could be steered or would drift aimlessly across the Arctic, quote, Andree announced that he had designed a system using guide ropes and a sail that had allowed his balloon to travel at cross purposes to the wind.
That's not how
That's
that
not
works.
how that works.
What if a sailboat was a balloon?
Yeah. And so he's just
okay, but I'm going to assume that this was not, in fact, something he built and tested. This is more of a vibes-based vehicle.
He had built it and he had tried to test it in the Baltic with like his own little balloon. And while he insisted that it worked, everybody else who observed the flight was just like, yeah, it's not working.
How can it be so divorced from a plane of reality? Whereas some people are saying, yeah, he can't steer that balloon. And meanwhile, he's up there pulling levers and whatnot. And he's like, I'm fucking killing it.
Yeah, he's just got the steering wheel. He's making vroom sounds with his mouth. He's like turning left and right. Meanwhile, he's just going in the same direction.
So is he an outright charlatan or is he insane?
He's a believer. There is a lot of disagreement as things go on, like whether he eventually felt like trapped by it. You know, he had already started this huge thing he can't let go, or if he was a true believer. But I don't believe he was a charlatan.
Yeah, he can't let go because he's going upwards in a balloon.
Because he's going to go
He's
on
up
this
there
thing.
in his McDonald's place looking ass cockpit, throwing levers and switches and doing nothing.
So when another critic asked how he and his crew would survive if the balloon failed, Andree talked about how the basket that they would use could just double as a boat, and they would just float there until a ship rescued them.
In the Arctic.
Yes.
So where warships and adventure ships purpose-built for these things have failed, this balloon basket will succeed.
Me and my two crewmates on the good ship Pollywog as we drift through the seas.
Going to have to pick this dipshit out of the water who didn't want to take a boat or a sled like a normal person.
Well, you know who the first person to be eaten in that fucking balloon's gonna be.
When the same explorer asked what he would do if they had to put down in the water without a ship nearby, Andree declared,
drown.
For once I do have to give him props for his honesty. I'm surprised it took this long to get there.
It's an incredibly, it's a great line. It's a great comeback, except for the fact that it's just like, I'll just die.
Yeah.
Owned.
Yeah. You can't own me. I own me. Fuck you. He's doing the bee rabbit on stage. He's saying all of his own failures, so you got nothing to hit back with.
Andree then capped off his speech with what was undeniably a great mic drop moment. He pointed at several explorers in the room and said,
when something happened to your ships, how did you get back? I risked 3 lives in what you call a foolhardy attempt. And you risked how many? A shipload.
And then everyone cheered. I am not kidding about that. As he walked out, like he said that line, he walked out, everyone stood up and cheered.
Andree Conda forever.
Yeah, just making eye contact with Greeley, who shot how many of his own crew.
I love that his defense of himself is again saying they're going to drown. It's like, yeah, but when I fail, I won't kill nearly as many people as you do. Like, is that a plus?
Like, it's this thing where he is correctly identifying a problem. Like, these big ship naval expeditions are not working, but his solution is also not going to work. And he's just like, you risked a shipload of men. When I pogo stick my way to the Arctic, I'm only going to risk myself.
And two other
apparently
guys.
This is convincing.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you shot someone because they wouldn't touch your shit-stained underwear.
Yeah, your dookie drawers.
He still hasn't taken it off. It's his waist is frostbitten and they can't get it off.
The poop is frozen to my butthole like a scab. But how is he going to find the two people willing to get into this balloon with him when he goes on stage and proudly declares he's in a suicide mission?
He actually has no problem.
Of course not. There's no shortage of dumb Europeans that are willing to risk their lives.
Better just, hey, can you give me like 2-3 conscripts?
I mean, when it's the 1800s, everybody's bored. What else are you going to do? Cocaine hadn't been invented yet.
I'm just now imagining like Greeley's expedition, like all of those U.S. Army Signal Corps, like what was the counter-strike of the 1890s? Like what were those sailors purely occupying themselves?
Rum, sodomy, and the lash, I assume. Just clapping each other's frozen ass cheeks. They got to stay warm somehow.
It just shatters. It's like Terminator 2.
Shatter my back door, Daddy.
Fuck.
Now, while the resounding opinion from every professional explorer, including other Swedes, was that his idea was stupid and it would almost certainly get him and his crew killed, the hype worked on richer and dumber men. Any fan of this show is well aware that the heart of any successful space program is not a lead engineer or a scientist, it's a hype man. Someone who can sell their ideas to politicians and elites in order to secure funding and access. Like Korolev or von Braun decades later, Andree was a good hype man, and he quickly got the support of Alfred Nobel and Oscar II, the King of Sweden.
So, I mean, obviously they're the rich men, but are they also the dumb men in this situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they're convinced that it's going to work. Like, Alfred Nobel is a scientist to his credit.
Sure.
Like, the thing that gets Andree a lot of credibility is that he is also one of the very few people in Sweden who knows how balloons work. So whenever he goes to Alfred Nobel and says, like, hey, I'm going to do a balloon expedition, Alfred Nobel, who is a scientist, is kind of like, well, I'm not a balloon guy, so I should probably, defer to him.
Got the balloon guy on board.
Yeah. I mean, who am I to discredit the balloon man?
After decades of watching from the sidelines, Andree's Arctic balloon expedition would be Sweden's official entry into the race for the North Pole. Hello, listener, and welcome to the mid-reel ad. If you enjoy Failure to Launch, more bad space history, and you want to hear more of it more often, there is an option, the FTL Patreon. Signing up at any tier gets you access to monthly bonus episodes and Q&As, and joining an elevated tier gets you even more content, like Chris-narrated minisodes. If that sounds good, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/failure to launch. And now, back to the episode. Flight of the Eagle. Now, with financial support and a lot of free publicity, Andree had no problem finding volunteers for the expedition. His first choices were Niels Ekholm, an experienced Arctic meteorologist, and Niels Strindberg, a 25-year-old physics student.
2 nils.
You can't go wrong. You got a backup one.
My emergency nil.
Strindberg, you're the backup. He just has to hide in, like, there's a little there's like a basement in the wicker basket. He just has to hide there. If anything happens to Ekholm, he gets to come up.
In case of emergency, unleash nil.
He opens the emergency nil pocket and he's just dead.
He is the dog in this sled scenario. He has to, like, be lowered down to the ice and just push the balloon along.
Someone's gotta carry it along.
Now, to build his custom balloon, Andree didn't cut corners, and he went to Paris, the unquestioned hub of ballooning. There he acquired the services of Henri Lachambre, an expert aeronaut and designer, to build him a balloon that could comfortably support a crew of 3 in the Arctic weather for a month.
A month? Jesus.
Yes.
How are they going to carry that much food?
They weren't.
Oh, well, problem solved.
I'm just imagining sharing an apartment with two guys for a month and no contact with the outside world. Someone's dying.
Yeah, this is kind of like proto Gemini 7.
Testing the human psyche.
These guys are going to stink just as much. While Andree had silent and not so silent doubts about the whole expedition, he still poured his efforts into building what was like basically the 1890s most advanced aircraft.
I mean, the check's gonna clear. He doesn't care if the expedition is gonna fail.
Oh yeah, and this thing is like, for its time, this is hyper advanced. This is like the F-22 of the 1890s.
Well, it's unfortunate it took him 50 years to build it.
It kind of turns into an F-35, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, you got some cost overruns?
A little bit of like good aerospace ideas mixed with like very unhelpful suggestions.
Good aerospace ideas
nice.
mixed with a guy called an aeronaut is never a good combination.
Was the title self-assigned?
It's a sick title. It's way cooler than any other title.
Yeah.
It is, but the problem is if it's self-assigned, then you're in a world of pain.
Well,
right there.
I think you guys should have like a Patreon, I don't know, tier or maybe like a card that just said certified aeronaut.
Oh god, that'd be fun.
I mean, like
certified aeronaut in the province of Quebec.
Yeah, exactly.
Solomon Andree Ballooning Academy certifies you as an aeronaut.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this balloon that Lachambre named Le Pôle Nord, or the North Pole, and which Andree immediately renamed the Ornan, or Eagle, it wound up being a strange mix of Lachambre's aeronautical brilliance and Andree's unhelpful suggestions.
Oh god, they built the flying Homer car from The Simpsons.
Basically, yeah. That is a very good comparison.
Outstanding.
For example, despite Lachambre knowing for a fact that it was not how balloons worked, Andree insisted that the Eagle have his trademark steering sails. Another was Andree's insistence on the balloon having a stove to cook their meals. Now, because the balloon was full of very flammable hydrogen, Lachambre was forced to design a system where an oven would hang 30 feet below the balloon.
That's dangling along with the ducks.
There's just a bunch of huskies and then like a little propane oven. He had it rigged up so it could be like they could lower it down, they could light it, they could let it cook, they could extinguish it and then pull it up.
Man,
that is so scuffed.
Yeah.
That food is terrible.
Oh yeah, because
it's
being cooked
just
by
gonna be
dogs.
like grilled black. Yeah,
yeah. By the time they hoist it back up, it's already frozen again.
I mean, the dogs are the confused huskies that are dangling alongside of it are gonna have to be cooking it. They don't know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, Andree's just like, come on, we got to train them.
Every once in a while, one gets too close to the oven and just poof.
The oven is just open. They're all swinging around, and yeah, every now and one of the stars align, and the dog just goes right in.
Fuck.
Oh no, we found the first Leica.
Yeah, just torched it by a Swede.
While I have very little respect for Andree and his ideas, I do want to be clear that like Henri Lachambre, he did an incredible job. Just that this design existed at all, like just that he was able to get something that kind of worked is a miracle.
Like he kind of forced it into reality.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to respect the man who begrudgingly designs a flying pendulum stove.
Yeah, just like the fact that he is well aware that this is going to kill whoever is in it. And I honestly feel like at first I would be very, I wouldn't want to do this. Like Andree, please, like you and your crew, you're at serious risk. But the more I would work with Andree and come to hate him, I would just be like nodding along like, oh yeah, we want to put an oven in the hydrogen balloon? No problem, man. Let me just set that up for you.
Yes, sir. I will build you the balloon that kills you. Not a problem.
Here's your throne. This is where you sit. And it just has like the saw bear trap around the head. And it's like, right there, sir. Yeah, just give it a try.
Just go in.
Anyway, I built the gas stove to work with sea stuff. I hope you fucking die.
Yeah, Andree just like working through his crew, and eventually they're just sending like 12-year-olds with him.
All right, so here you go. You have your C stuff, you have your T stuff. I've made the connection points the exact same. It's up to you.
Be sure to handle it with bare hands. Have fun.
With the Eagle ready for flight in 1896, Andree and his crew loaded into a boat and made for Svalbard, an Arctic archipelago about 1,000 kilometers north of Norway. As with every part of their expedition, their departure was a cause for celebration in Sweden. Remember, this is basically like the 1890s moonshot. Andree was going to catapult Sweden to the forefront of exploration and technology, and he was going to do it with a crew a tenth of the size of other countries' expeditions. Unfortunately, this dream did not pan out. When they reached Svalbard and set the Eagle up in its hangar, the wind blew solidly from the north for 3 weeks non-stop, making leaving impossible.
What does a Swedish celebration look like? Are they just like shaking meatballs in the air, like smashing?
Everyone's
them
throwing
in
it
their
like confetti.
just plop, 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 plop as they come back down there.
They said you could walk across the harbor. It was so full of meatballs.
A whole bunch of very bored blonde people throwing meatballs in the air.
Now, so attempt 1 has failed. Not only was this a setback for the expedition and they had to slink back to Sweden to try again later, but it started a new wave of criticism from international experts. From the beginning, Andree's plan, like he had basically just said, people had asked him like, hey, what happens if the wind doesn't blow properly? And he just said, no, it will.
I can control the wind. It's fine.
Noted mind reader and physicist.
One of the Nils is a weather druid. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I've ironed all these problems out.
We put him in the weather hole in the balloon. He's going to solve it.
He'll dangle along next to the stove.
Nils Ekholm was actually a meteorologist.
Yeah, weather druid. He can control
like, basically, on their first attempt, all of these critics are vindicated because, like, hey, Andree, the wind is not going to cooperate. You just tried and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And this is the point, it's a very good point. And Ekholm actually decides to quit the expedition at this point.
Good call.
Nice.
I'm staging a wildcat strike with the Huskies.
But it wasn't the wind that convinced him. Despite being a professional meteorologist, he seemed to be just as convinced as Andree that the weather would just sort of work. What made him quit was how much hydrogen the balloon leaked.
Well, that seems problematic.
Oh.
You need that, I think, in balloons to fly.
Yeah. Basically, Ekholm, he was doing the math on how much, like, hydrogen and how long the flight would have to go. Because of the guide ropes and the sail, he figured that it would actually take twice as long as Andree thought. So Andree at first was like, no, it'll take like 3 days and then we'll be in the United States. And basically as a safety margin, they would take like, all right, well, it's going to be 3 days. So we need to have 30 days of safety just in case, because the wind is kind of going to push us around a little bit.
Because my fucking directional sails don't work.
Yeah. Quote, according to measurements Ekholm had made, it lost gas at a rate that suggested 17 days was more reasonable. Ekholm's measurements had been difficult to interpret, however. The balloon seemed to lose gas erratically, which didn't seem probable. Not until he was back in Sweden did he learn that Andree had been having the balloon refilled. So, like, he's doing this math to try and figure out how much the balloon is leaking, and Andree is going behind his back and topping the balloon up to make it seem better.
So he measured 17 days, and if Andree had been refilling it, that means it's got to be less than that, right?
This thing is a pasta strainer trying to hold on to all this hydrogen.
God, that seems to be a really bad underestimation if they're going to be off by 50%.
Yeah.
At
or
least.
more.
Not only did Ekholm quit, but he actually started trying to, like, stop the expedition wholesale. He mailed his calculations to the project's backers, like Alfred Nobel, and he even intercepted the King of Sweden at the Stockholm train station to, like, personally beg him to pull the plug. It didn't work. The King and Nobel were not convinced. Ekholm was replaced by Knut Frankel, a civil engineer from Karlstad, and the expedition planned for a second attempt in the summer of 1897. When they departed in May, it was again a very big deal. Quote, the papers published tributes. One said of Andree, yes, it is you, our hero with the old Viking blood in his veins. The explorers took the night train to Göteborg. On the platform, the cheer, Long Live Andree, was raised and repeated twice. On May 18th, they departed Göteborg on the gunboat Svenskund. The day they arrived in Spitsbergen, May 30th, a Chicago paper ran a piece that began, Andree's daring in attempting to reach the pole in a balloon is almost certainly going to cost him his life.
Everybody knows that the true old Vikings did all of their pillaging on balloon back.
I also appreciate that the Chicago, like, newspaper that is, they're presenting this as a heroic thing. Like, look at how heroic that man is going to his death.
Yeah, people as then as now, people love blood and guts, even if, you know, the main difference is they couldn't watch Andree die on, like, X or whatever.
If they had, like, if they set up a live stream.
Yeah. I mean, if Andree was Twitch streaming his own death, people would fucking love it.
Other explorers hedged their bets. The famous Norwegian explorer Fridtjof Nansen wrote Strindberg,
"It would be idle, my dear Strindberg, to say that I should not feel a passing pang of jealousy if you should reach the pole ahead of me. Nevertheless, I wish you success with all of my heart. Skål to the Andree balloon, and may it solve the great problem in safety."
What do you do? Just
he's hedging his bets. He's saying, like, good luck, congratulations, a toast to your balloon, and may it not die the way we all know it will.
just throwing a can of dip at him as he goes by.
And this is on the day they're leaving. It's just like, hey man, I hope you sort it out. Good luck.
Don't worry, after Nils quit, we hired at least 16 more Huskies.
We hired another student. Now, Solomon Andree, Niels Strindberg, and Knut Frankel boarded the Eagle and lifted off toward the North Pole on June 11th, 1897. The balloon immediately snagged on the hangar on its way out. It rose a few hundred feet before descending and skimming the water, and the crew had to dump almost 500 pounds of ballast to get it to rise even a little bit. Then the Eagle drifted drunkenly northeasterly until it disappeared over the horizon. It was supposed to be going northwest.
This is what you call foreshadowing.
I appreciate that, like, they didn't have a good start. It was immediately just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, that when you have to dump out, like, all of your Huskies into the ocean to rise back into the sky again, it's probably you need to all three of you need to have a sober look into one another, deep into each other's eyes, be like, maybe we should go back.
Maybe we've fucked up now.
One of the funny things is that this would be the last that the world would see any of these men alive.
Yeah, I bet.
Solomon Andree, the last words that anyone other than the crew heard him say were whenever the balloon snagged, he shouted, "What's that?" They are not off to a good start.
Weird. My words have been, shit.
Damn.
Oh, this hanger jumped right out in front of me and bit my fucking balloon. Didn't see it there.
Just a muffled
and again, fuck? Like they take off, they fly a little bit, they like start skimming the ocean. The way it's described is they're basically like bouncing off the ocean as they go.
Oh, good thing it's also designed to be a boat. He thought ahead.
Everyone else is just like sitting in the back knowing they're about to die. Andree is at the front. He's like raising his hands as they go over the lip like, woo!
Everyone who watched this balloon take off knew they were not going to see this balloon ever again, right?
Alone on the ice.
Now, explorers keeping journals is not new or unprecedented. There are a lot of reasons for someone to want to keep notes as they explore some new, unknown environment. For a lot of explorers, it was so they could publish it when they returned home. But for many, it also offered a way for a failure to still contribute to science. It's kind of macabre, but like, to the right kind of person, having your notes survive you and still be useful is appealing and worthwhile. While we don't know exactly why each member of the Eagle's crew kept their notes, Andree, Strindberg, and Frankel all wrote detailed journals of their travels. Strindberg was also an accomplished photographer and took pictures all through their journeys.
This is like the old version of live streaming your death. Like these are the pictures like on a YouTube compilation say, last pictures ever taken, part 8.
So I don't have the pictures up right now, but if you just go into Google and just search Andree balloon expedition and then go to images, almost all of the images there were like taken by Strindberg after they crash. There's like a bunch of pictures. They killed so many fucking polar bears. We'll get to that in a second, but they like commit a local massacre of polar bears on their attempt to get home.
Yeah, it's like when you go to prison and punch the biggest guy you see so nobody fucked with you. They just attempted to slaughter the largest predator in the Arctic, General Winter goes easy on them. Yeah.
Now, I was trying to think of how to structure this and like if I should save the twist for the end, but just for the sake of everyone's understanding in history, I'm going to be upfront. It would be more than 30 years before the mystery of Andree's balloon expedition would be solved, their final resting place found, and their journals republished. This is what we know happened to the crew of the Eagle. From their journals, the first day or so the flight went well. They took turns sleeping and keeping watch while the balloon drifted. At one point, it hung motionless in the air for about an hour, and at another time it swung west instead of north, but they were making somewhat good progress. On day 2, problems started to arise. The Eagle flew through a bank of fog and developed a strange bounding flight. Every 5 minutes, it would slam into the ice and then bounce back off again.
That is what is known as bad.
This was bad enough that Strindberg got seasick from it.
How the fuck does he get seasick in a balloon? How bad do you fuck up?
This is catastrophic.
Again, they temporarily solved this issue by dropping even more ballast, which they need.
Yeah.
They are 2 days into their flight and they have already dropped 1,000 pounds of ballast.
Are they just no longer planning on landing at this point?
I don't know. Yeah, they're just going to keep going up.
Some say they're still
Just
up there.
up.
And it didn't even work that well. Quote, they released some of the gas to lower themselves, then, a little after 8, apparently resigned to disappointment, they landed and jumped out of the balloon, worn out and famished. They had been aloft for 65 hours and 33 minutes, had traveled 517 miles, and were about 300 miles north of where they had started. That is, about 300 miles south of the pole. Just like that, the flight of the Eagle was over.
So their emergency plan was tuck and roll?
Yeah, it was just like, all right, we're going to land now.
Brace for impact.
They've basically traveled, 500 miles, but they've only gone 300 miles north, and they are only halfway to the pole.
I'm actually impressed they made it to day 2 before problem.
Oh, yeah. Considering that, immediately after leaving, they slammed into the ocean.
And it made a balloon so bad that it got a guy seasick.
Yeah. The first thing they did, so at this point, they immediately give up on reaching the pole, which is a good idea. They decide they're going to try and get home. The first thing they did was take a week to decide what to take with them and load up 3 sledges, one for each man.
How does it take you a
Great
week?
use of time in the Arctic.
Yeah. Also, fuck this guy for demeaning the sledge. Now it's gonna, now he's relying on it. Fuck you.
This is why they died. I mean, he pissed off the god of the sledges. Sledge door.
I'm imagining an alternate version of this where Andree is just like no, I'm not going to give up on my principles. Fuck sledges. Carry it and put it in a backpack.
Put the saddle on one of the Huskies. We're riding back home.
So after a week, they get 3 sleds loaded up, and each of these is loaded up with 400 pounds.
And they're pulling these themselves.
They do not have dogs.
This seems like a bad idea.
We're just really cranking up the misery machine at this point.
So, before departing, Andree had arranged for a ship captain to leave a supply cache at Franz Josef Land, an archipelago in the north of Russia. This is basically an emergency stock. This was also common for explorers at the time. If you know you're going north and you might have to walk home, you leave yourself supply caches that can kind of keep you alive.
Just trying to mitigate the death?
Yeah. So they start heading off east, and then they stop after a week because what happened was they took star charts, and after a week of walking east, they realized that they had actually gone west.
That seems like a problem.
As they are walking over the ice is drifting beneath them, and it is pulling them west faster than they are walking.
Imagine how upset they were when they discovered that.
Andre's just he puts down the star chart, and he's like, oh, you guys are going to be so mad at me. Promise you're not going to be mad.
You've got to promise first.
Yeah, so they basically did 1 week of walking on a giant treadmill, and it got them nowhere. Also, like I said, they are killing every single bear they can find. I don't have numbers, but it's basically like an every other day thing. They shoot a bear, they skin it, and they take its meat.
There's a lot of meat in a bear. How are they going through so much bear meat?
They're not. They are gaining bear meat. They are stocking up. They think they're stocking up, in case they need to walk a while, we need to get a good amount of bear meat. This becomes such a problem because their sleds are now loaded with bear meat, which attracts bears.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, goody, more bear meat.
And every time a bear shows up to get the bear meat, they shoot the bear and it goes on the pile. So they're just they have gone a week in the wrong direction, and they're just 400 pounds of gear has turned into several tons of bear.
They're going to end up with 600 pounds of bear meat and a horrible scurvy.
Yeah. It's they're not going to starve. They're going to die when their guts explode. There's I could not finish any more bear. Andre's just you're being rude. I hunted this bear for you.
They've accidentally adopted Jordan Peterson's all meat diet.
Ugh.
The bears that eventually get to eat their corpses are just going to have the world's first turducken experience. Bear humanin.
You have to eat more bear in order to survive.
So they give up on trying to reach Russia and instead they aim back towards Svalbard. There is another one of these supply caches that they have set up at the far north tip of Svalbard at a place called Seven Islands, although this one is a lot smaller than the one in Russia. For the next month, they trekked south, trying to reach Seven Islands to the southwest, although the current actually took them to the southeast. It's also worth mentioning at this point they had bad maps.
I mean, that goes great with the fucked up star charts.
Yeah. I fully imagine Andree like looking at the stars and then looking at his map and deciding that the map is more accurate.
He's got one of those old maps that have like dragons in the sea and shit. He's like, I don't know if this is accurate.
No, we can't
man.
go there.
Listen, we can't fight the dragon. We shot too many bears. We don't have enough bullets.
Everybody knows about the Bear Dragon Alliance.
Frankel is just having to haul the dragon corpse with him after Andree has shot it. There's just like an entire trail, like hundreds of bears are just slowly following them.
Everybody knows dragon meat attracts more dragons.
It's like the most fucked up parade. Like I wanna hear the nature documentary of Andree's like this mass migration of bears.
All aboard the meat parade, boys.
When the bear going for the meat is shot, another bear takes his place. He's gonna run out of bullets soon, boys.
You know, the only thing that kept the bears going was the urging of the bear commissars.
A bear-sized... Oh god, that is terrifying. A bear-sized revolver.
The journey also started to take a toll on the men, Frankel most of all. He had chronic diarrhea and bad stomach pains, for which Andree gave him opium and morphine, respectively.
Well, that makes the walking easier. I mean, everybody like that. Oh man, I wonder what's causing this. Bear meat's lousy with fucking parasites.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this dude over here is just zoomed out.
He's literally chasing the dragon now.
You don't understand. I need its meat.
Quote, they set out fish hooks baited with bear meat but didn't catch anything. One evening, Andree suggested that they try the bear meat raw, and they decided that it tasted like oysters. They made blood pancakes from bear's blood and oatmeal fried in butter. Strindberg also made soup from algae, which, Andree wrote, should be considered as a fairly important discovery for travelers in these tracts.
Well, I think we figured out what gave the dude diarrhea. They're eating raw bear meat.
No, you're getting worms at that point.
I do love that, like, they've invented an entire bear meat cookbook by the end of this. Like, they put bear blood in their oatmeal.
Yeah.
Of all of the things I was expecting to hear about today, it was not bear blood pancakes.
Yeah.
This episode brought to you by The Bear Book. I do have to say, shout out to the one guy who is now ripped to the gills on opium. He doesn't have diarrhea anymore. He ain't shit for weeks.
I think he's not going to shit ever again,
I mean, like, these are also guys in the 1870s, so, like, I'm sure their guts are, like, the fucking Somme between human tapeworms and bear tapeworms.
Yeah.
I'm just like, we need to fight back the invaders. We need to defend our home.
And that's the thing. If you think about it, they had, 10 years until original recipe Coca-Cola came out?
Oh.
And not to mention, their appetite for opiates is on par with my high school in 2006. Like, they can take so much morphine. It's probably incredible.
The first bear that finds Frankel's corpse, not only is it getting the human baron experience, it's also it just bites into him and its pupils just go massive.
What, just slaps the head?
What's going on with Bjorn over there? Why is he dancing?
Just slapping Bjorn upside the head. You won't believe how much opiates we crammed into this man.
Now, in mid-September, they realized that the drift was taking them further and further from Svalbard, and they also gave up on trying to reach it. Instead, Strindberg started building a small home on an ice floe by piling snow bricks and freezing them together.
We just live here now, boys.
Yeah, that's basically it. Like, all right, we're just going to make, like, the Pengu igloo, and we're just going to float forever. The bears were gone by this point, so Andree moved over to killing every single seal. He killed like 3 of them within 2 days.
Was there not enough bear?
Also, throughout all of this, I don't like. I mean, it clearly worked.
How much ammo did they bring?
So much ammo. Not to mention, like, these are things they describe killing bears in like 1 or 2 shots. These things are not.
Oh, so we have like the cartoonishly large rifles.
Yeah, like throwing over the dogs, throwing over all of the ballast, and like Andree is just like, no, I need all of my 20 millimeters. You cannot lose any of those.
I packed 6,000 rounds of ammunition for a reason, god damn it.
Introducing these guys to the concept of a Barrett 50 cal.
The bears will remember me.
Like I guarantee you, like as they're finally starving, they're doing a last stand. It is fully just like a COD Zombies level.
It's all the angry bears remembering all the loved ones they've lost.
Oh, don't forget, we've got the SEALs involved now, too.
The only ally that fucking Andree's gonna have are the orcas at this point.
Oh, yeah. Now, the men moved to their little igloo home, only for it to fall apart 4 days later, because they were on an ice floe, and the ice floe, like, split right down the middle and split their home in half.
Okay, at that point, you just fucking shoot yourself, man. Mother Nature itself wants you to die.
Whatever god of the sea you care about is personally trying to fuck you over.
Yeah, the Arctic
just suck start your rifle.
The Arctic is personally offended by the bear slaughter.
Honestly, the rescuers like probably could have found them by just like following the blood.
Following the funeral pyres of the bear kind.
Yeah. Thankfully, the crew were able to recover most of their gear, and their ice floe drifted toward the island of Kvitoya. On October 5th, they reached the island and started building a new winter home out of driftwood and ice. The day after they started was Andree's mother's birthday, so he dubbed their camp Mina Andree's Place. Andree's final journal entry is for October 8th, 1897, when he wrote that bad weather had kept the three men locked in their tents all day.
Okay, so it sounds like their death was kind of a surprise to them.
Kind of?
Like if they were on the downward trend
the
of like
opiates were really working.
Yeah, if they were in the downward trend of like starvation or something, they probably would have noted something.
The bear tapeworms in my guts reacting to the seal tapeworms in my guts like matter touching antimatter, and I just die instantly.
Just the gang war happening in the stomach.
the fucking 915, 916 gang war, but it's purely just various tapeworms fighting it out in my brain.
Just getting the most catastrophic case of trichinosis known to mankind.
Robert F. Kennedy survived that.
Ooh.
Yeah, they got some like weapons grade trichinosis probably.
Yeah, the worms are still represented nowadays.
Recovery. Now, we don't know exactly how the men died. In 1930, the Brattvåg, a Norwegian sealing ship, found Mina Andree's place while its hunters were chasing walrus. Digging around, they found Andree's body sitting against a rock, exposed with his rifle at his side, and also most of his skull missing.
Oh yeah, he went out doing what he loved, examining skulls.
In fairness, that's probably not the way he died. Just that he had been picked over by a bear, and the bear was just like, yeah, no phrenology for you, fucko.
The bear did phrenology on him. It's like, seems Swedish, bitch.
Yeah, just like the bear examining the skull lumps with its tongue as it chews on his head. They found Strindberg's body not far away. And then, in a strange turn of events, it actually wasn't the crew of the Brattvåg who found Frankel. When the Brattvåg reported their findings and rumors started to spread, a group of reporters hired another ship, the Isbjorn, to track the Brattvåg down and interview them. When the Isbjorn couldn't find them, the reporters instead opted to just go to Kvitoya and check for themselves. They found Frankel along with all of Strindberg's pictures and logbooks. So again, like there is a lot of disagreement over how exactly they died. A lot of some people have suggested bear attacks. But at the same time, like a lot of them had like torn up clothing, like their bodies were all mangled. It's just as likely, probably more likely, that a bear just found them later and just chowed down.
Yeah, the bear was trying to recover the worms.
I mean, like, it has to be something like sudden. Someone would have noted something about like, hey, our supplies all vanished. We're starving. I certainly don't feel well, you know?
One of the most likely, considered most likely, is basically like food poisoning, trichinosis, because a lot of the stuff, like they're eating raw bear and seal meat. There is again some disagreement on the exact like mechanism of this. For example, like polar bear livers have ridiculously high levels. I can't remember the exact chemical, but they are very poisonous if ingested. So people have suggested that. At the same time, different parts of the journal, like sometimes they suggest that the men knew about this and weren't eating it. Could have been something in the seals. Lead poisoning, but basically, they all died pretty soon after October 8th. the last entry.
They got hit with a true melange of just everything.
Yeah.
Just the Mr. Burns, like all of your diseases are trying to kill you, and then like the opium is the thing that finally slips through.
It's only a matter of time before one of those worms hit something important.
Now, all 3 bodies and their belongings were returned to Sweden, where Solomon Andrée, Knut Frankel, and Niels Strindberg were put to rest in a massive state funeral. Quote, each coffin was placed in an open car to ride to the cathedral. A funeral salute of 10 guns was fired. Standing at the pulpit, the Archbishop said, "Welcome home, Andrée. Welcome home, Strindberg. Welcome home, Frankel." That evening, a memorial was held in the City Hall. The Secretary of the Swedish Academy, E.A. Karlfeld, gave a talk, Andrée and National Feeling. The coffins remained in state for a few more days. Then, on October 9th, Andrée, Strindberg, and Frankel were consigned to the flames.
Unlike the meat they were eating.
You know, at least they didn't let the worms just go into the soil and metastasize.
Oh god, this is just that bad Left 4 Dead game.
Oh, Back for Blood.
Back for Blood.
Yep.
Yeah, like they find the Arctic infected worms and then it spreads from there.
Due to 3 hapless Swedes.
Are you Swedish? Do you currently have brain worms? Right into the show.
Have your worms right in.
Ever since, like this started the proud tradition. Ever since 1930, every Swede who grows up has their brainworm with them at all times.
Aww.
And that, everyone, is the story of André's Arctic balloon expedition. How are we all feeling?
Couldn't have happened to a stupider dude.
Yeah, he really did a lot of legwork to deserve this one.
Yeah,
I just love the fucking with the calculations of, hey, he's trying to actually do something here. I'm going to go top it up.
Yeah, like, hey, this guy on my team has found out that my balloon isn't working and it's probably going to kill all of us. I'm going to mess with that. I'm going to make sure it looks better than it does. Like,
hey, he showed him the balloon didn't kill them. The worms did.
I mean, he probably had to recognize something when he's tracking how much, lift this thing is generating and watch it go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down.
Oh, God, whenever it was in that, like, bouncing period.
That's probably when they all knew, like, yeah, we're probably fucked here. It does go back to the question of, like, why? Like, he had an engineer tell him, we're losing too much fuel, and then found
It's
out
fucked, Cap.
that he knew that anyway and was simply refueling it. So like he had to know this thing cannot possibly hold enough gas to get where we're going. But fuck it, we ball.
I think for him, it may have been something along the lines of like, because in his best estimation, it only needed to stay in the air for like 6 days. And the 30 and the 17 days were like safety. So maybe I think in André's mind, he was just like, I don't even need 17. This is going to be done in a week.
I am curious though, how did he expect to get back?
Once they got to America, they would just like get a ship back. They'd be celebrities, and then everything would just kind of like, basically his plan was somewhat detailed on how to get to the pole. And then there was a literal quote from Strindberg. I didn't have it in the script, but he was just like, once we reach the pole, we don't care where we're going.
Well, they didn't even have to worry about the first part, so good on them.
Although in a kind of fun turn of events, the first people to like there are a couple of claims about who reached the poles. There are a couple of American expeditions that claim to have reached it but had no way of proving it. The first people to reach the pole and actually prove it flew in a Zeppelin effect, like a giant hydrogen dirigible.
Oh man, Andree would be so mad about that.
Yeah. So yeah, that is the story of to my knowledge, like one of the very few Victorian aerospace disasters. And I hope it lived up to the hype. I hope it was fun for everyone.
It was just delightful. It had everything that I love, namely a fucking moron getting comeuppance.
Hell yeah. I want to do the Wikipedia like battle meme, like the little thing they have at the top right. Except it's just, like the crew of the Eagle versus Bears. Pyrrhic victory, Bears.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems is when you fight the Battle of the Isonzo against Bears, eventually it doesn't go your way.
It's such a fun story. Like, I shouldn't say it like that. Like these guys die. We don't know exactly how they died, but like, I do find it kind of weird that they all died like pretty soon after that final journal entry.
They all had to die at pretty much the same time, or one of their journals would note the other one's dying. So I feel like had to have been some form of violence, whether it be them finally snapping and murdering each other or a bear doing it, because one of the three, especially the guy who's very far away from the rest of them, assuming he didn't get like dragged away by bears or whatever, but like someone would have noticed like, hey, Nils died.
Yeah.
Which just makes it better. I mean, honestly, like the fact that they do all of this, they end up building like an igloo and shit, building a cabin out of driftwood and ice, and then they all just get snuffed out in a matter of hours.
I'm just imagining them kind of like Strindberg is on watch, everyone else is sleeping, and you just see like behind him these like white furry arms kind of like reach out of the darkness, cover his mouth, and like a blade come out.
They just got no-knock raided by a polar bear.
Shh, 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 shh. No screams, only dreams.
As it just like immediately after that, it just rips Andre's head off.
And I mean, like, we have enough evidence when it comes to like bear attacks that like bears are quite silent while they murder people. They don't make a ton of noise. So if one of them was getting ripped apart, I mean, like, and to be fair, their bodies weren't discovered till 30 years later. If they died a violent death, there's probably not a lot of evidence left of it, especially once animals get to them for payback or food. One or the other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they probably took their night-night opium drops and got mauled.
Yeah.
Every single bear like lining up to like get one swipe in at the corpse.
This is for my cousin Jimmy.
On the other hand, yeah, just like them being so weighed down by bear pelts, they just collapse, their bones turn into splinters.
Because the idea of them dying from some disease or illness makes no sense. I highly doubt they all would just collapse and die without a word, all at once, without noting anything in their journal. Like, I am definitely on the side of violent death here, and that's not just because I'm hoping for the best.
There is also there were a couple of examples, like Arctic explorers leaving a journal so that they could be found after they died. Again, like, was not new. And there are some of them where the dudes are like chronicling, literally like the last entry is just like, oh, there go, my legs have stopped. It's just like chronicling their death.
Yeah. I mean, there's a newer example, not exactly a scientist or an adventurer, just a dumbass who killed himself. Was the guy who they made the movie Into the Wild about. He charted his own death via diary the whole time.
Yeah. To any listener, if you are interested in this, I would highly recommend the book The Ice Balloon. It's very good. It goes into a lot more like Arctic exploration. It goes into talking about the Greeley expedition. And I don't know, if I were Strindberg, if I had the camera, I would absolutely be taking pictures like selfies the whole time, like just captioning it like me with the idiot who stranded me to a horrible death.
And you know these guys weren't soldiers because there wasn't a single dick pic in there.
Either Andree is crossed out or he's like doodled over. I would make it so passive aggressive.
Well, he absolutely got it right. He did only kill 3 people.
Yeah, he did get one thing right.
I mean, how many bears makes a person's life? You know, how do we add that up?
As many as it takes.
Yes.
What is the bear to person calculus? I think it's how many bears did it take to kill them in the end.
The fucking, again, that's why I consider this a Pyrrhic victory. They took more losses, the bears and the seals, but they won in the end.
That's all that matters. I mean, who are they building statues of? Oh, wait, fuck.
And on the island of Kvitoya, there is a monument to the expedition.
Not a single monument to
like, I'm sure in their bearish way, there's a monument to all the war dead.
Like a Vietnam War wall with all the names of the polar bears on it.
It's just like various like scratches and like paw prints on the wall. Now, that has been a podcast. Joe, do you have anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, I'm the host of the Lions Led by Donkeys podcast. We talk about military disasters, crimes against humanity, weird stories from military history, and all other military and or history-related things.
Audience, you have already heard the Patreon plug. If you like this and want to hear more of it, consider supporting Failure to Launch on Patreon. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a delightful joy of bear meat.
It seriously is always a joy having you on.
And audience, goodbye.
Adios.
Thank you to everyone who have signed up to support the show, and a big shout out to all of our top tier patrons. Our cyborg cats are August Sun, Boss, Charlie, David R, Ellie M, Jorg 2, Luke Newcomb, Lupe AG, Matt, Mobius Striptease, Nerd Beast, Noah, Oil Drum, Pat, Spectre Cohen, Tactical Spork, Tortilla Baron, and Vivek D. Our space dogs are a Union Thug, That Guy is Best Guy, Adam H., Angry Old Man Yada Yada, Anthony C., Otto Fox, Band User, Baron M., Ben L., Boomzilla, Cantaloupe Was Taken, Chainsaw Snuggling, Charles G., Cole C., Captain Lag, CSD 2016, Daddy Bongo, Double Time, Dr. Shockmaster, Ank, Aaron, Fractal Moonlight, Furious Luddite, I Hope You Have a Good Day, Ian W., Emmanuel Lewis, JM, James A., James C., Jamie K., John C., John Tastic, Kara Chameleon, Kate D., Corbin the Dog, Korolev's Condiments, Lane of the Wired, Lens Wipe, M, McLean C, Mar, Nick C, Norman W, Panda, Randall, Sam A, Sean F, Sean H, Sensual Kazoo, Sean P, Sophie L, Sparks, Spirit of Thunder, That Big Sexy, The Best Sean, Tom M, Tim P, Trash Dough, Verosh T, Vrisk, Will W, Wingsmith, Zap, and Zim. Albert Count 104. Thank you for listening to another episode of Failure to Launch. If you want to follow us, we are Failure to Launch on Blue Sky and FT Launch Pod on Instagram. We also post our episodes with visual aids at Failure to Launch Podcast on YouTube. All music was provided by DJ Danarchy.